Hello all, this is Nate Cap, and this is a re-recorded version of my Earthbrain presentation for personal reasons, which I won't be getting into. As for the actual seed event, I'd like to thank Brandon and Bruce Martin and everyone else for helping put this unique event together. It is very valuable that we do more events when and where we can with this type of information, because I feel the importance is pretty major. So let's begin. This presentation is easily the most ambitious of any of my works done so far, so I hope you guys are prepared to spend some quality time. And you can watch and listen at your own leisure, but make sure to study this whole presentation in its entirety to gain the maximum value. What you will be seeing is nothing new. I'm not going to get into too much detail and depth on each topic, but the main point is to see the connection and how certain types of religious symbolism corresponds to our brains, which corresponds to the global earth brain, which then corresponds to the cosmos, which corresponds to the all of everything. I want to be clear, this has absolutely nothing to do with flat earth malarkey. However, I would like to say that I appreciate the openness to looking into topics like that. I get it, we've been misled about so many things that are affecting us, and why not think the Earth's shape is a lie too? And I say to all flat earthers out there, shape is irrelevant, but what is in fact very relevant is that we are submerged in slavery and need to be freed before arguing the perceptions of the shapes of the land. Sure, it's totally fine to go explore any extreme topic out there like that. I actually encourage it. But we have to stay oriented and get past that to go further in consciousness. Lots of the work you'll see in this presentation is based off of Mark Passio's Earthbrain religion breakdowns, and that man is a pretty incredible soul and has definitely put a wealthy ladder of rungs out there for everyone to touch the stars with if the work is understood and put into action. And I promise this presentation isn't just some rehash either. So I'd also like to make it clear that I'm not deterring anyone from looking into the information of this presentation, but I am stating that this information is mostly for the advanced class. It's for the serious students. It's for those who can distinguish allegory from literacy. It's for those who are open to uncomfortable patterns and abstract vision, who are searching for truth. I recommend anyone not familiar with the topics I cover to go do some serious searching of the occult and esotericism. And just keep in mind, this presentation is you. It's about you. Whether you believe that or not, it's irrelevant. Now, let's put on our deepest pattern recognition goggles, because we're going to the stars. So just real quick, we're going to go over the table of contents, and we're going to talk about consciousness, symbolism, Hermeticism, Cymatics, Astrological Symbols, Freemasonry, Astrotheology, Earthbrain, religion, subversive symbolism, Polarization Dialectics. Throughout the whole presentation, I'll be touching on solar, stellar, and lunar cults. I'll also be introducing the Gavel, the cube, and the circled dot. It becomes really interesting, so make sure to see the whole thing. It's very important. So just to make sure we understand the major religions of the world, I'm not presenting this information to bash on any one of these religions or any other religions for that matter. I'm simply conveying correlations and eclectic observations of three major religions in correspondence to our brain, to symbols, and the overall human condition. However, I know religion itself is the biggest problem on Earth. I'm sure most people can agree with that, or, the people that are not religious. Or who don't associate themselves with religion anyway. It constitutes for massive, unimaginable, unnecessary violence and keeps us from evolving into higher states of consciousness. And that's the truth. So these three religions are known as the three major religions of the world. We see Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. It's important to note where these areas are located geographically. And by the way, if you didn't notice, I modified the map so it's easier for us to stay oriented with respect to the directions of north, south, east, and west of the landmass. Plus, this is a common placement map considering our language of Western and Eastern thought and regions. Looking at Catholicism or Christianity, we see that the base for it is an area most associated with the religion that comes out of Rome, Italy, where the Vatican is located. Then, if we go southeast to Israel, we find the city of Jerusalem, home of the Jews. Then on down southeast to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, where we find the religion of Islam. And if you're not familiar with these three religions and where they are, you should definitely take notes, because this is very important when trying to stay oriented and making sense of all this. Making sense of life and the world. I'm going to cover more on these religions as I progress. So looking at the principle of correspondence, it's as above, so below, as below, so above. The grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. And by the way, the planes of material, mental, and spiritual are all degrees of the same thing. There's no separation, just different frequencies of the field. So just keep in mind that that which is above is likened to that which is below, and that which is below is likened to that which is above. It's about the microcosm, like our mind reflecting the macrocosm, like the universe or the cosmos, and vice versa. This is a spiritual scientific application to help us understand the occult, the hidden. Symbolism is the universal language of the mysteries. Within each symbol holds information which can only be revealed to those who possess the keys and have the eyes to see and ears to hear. The medium of symbolism is the connection to nature that helps man understand the sacred science of the inner and outer universe, the whole self. To understand these symbols and how they control the mind is to be conscious and to know why they are being fed to our subconscious. We're not going to, see how these ideas and symbols work together if we're not open to their obvious effects in our history and the now. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of cymatics, but people think symbols have no effects on humans. They think symbols just mean what people want them to mean. Well, it goes a lot deeper than that, and it takes some open-minded research and pattern recognition to really understand and appreciate the effects of symbols in our field of being. When it comes to cymatics, the vibrational frequency, which creates patterns or apparent symbols created by sound waves, basically patterns like hexagons, octagons, or any equilateral geometric shape. So basically, sound creates a certain frequency which generates the visible symbols. And in the same way, the symbol represents the sound and frequency. The symbols are just holographic representations of vibrational waveform states. Sound and symbol are different expressions of the same thing. This is why we don't just resonate or harmonize with music. We can also align with symbol, whether it be found naturally within our natural state or through expression of all different sorts. So if we are being bombarded with symbols all the time, which we mostly are, then our subconscious is being energetically fed what these symbols represent. Our whole field is affected, whether it be negative or positive, consciously or unconsciously. When the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men. They shall then know truth, and, more than that, they shall realize that from the beginning truth has been in the world unrecognized, saved by a small but gradually increasing number appointed by the lords of the dawn as ministers to the needs of human creatures, struggling to regain their consciousness of divinity. It's a quote by Manly P. Hall. Staying oriented within the Hermetic principles is key to understand when trying to unlock the occulted mysteries of the brain and all that correspond. You could say Hermeticism is fundamental to unlocking the universe, to say the least. It is essential to possess the epistemological understanding of Freemasonic science bridged with the governing Hermetic principles of natural law when trying to piece together the ancient wisdom. If you're paying attention, I want you, the viewer or observer, to remember these symbols and words, even their alignment and positioning. This is all part of understanding the sacred science of Freemasonry, and just to throw it out there, this has absolutely nothing to do with any lodge system or boogeyman society. This is just beautiful ancient common sense wisdom and science. This is also associated with the mythos of dynastic Egypt. So from here on out, I'm going to cover Astrotheology and Freemasonry. I'm going to give a very small overview of this trestle board or tracing board, whichever you prefer, of Solomon's Temple to help stay oriented. This piece of art and sacred science is one of the most esoteric symbols one could ever study, in my opinion. Solomon stands for Sol, which is Latin for sun. Om equals Om in Hebrew, or O as in void, which I'll break down what I mean by that later. And then we have Mon, which means moon. So Sol, O, moon, sun and moon. Masculine and feminine. The left Doric pillar is the sacred masculine pillar, the light pillar. The singular symbol of the sacred masculine is the blade, the right side up equilateral triangle, which also represents the left brain, the masculine hemisphere of the brain. Then, to the right is the sacred feminine Corinthian pillar of beauty and Boaz with the moon above. This is the dark pillar associated with the right brain, and the singular inverted equilateral triangle or chalice also represents the sacred feminine energy. When these two pillars fall in unison of each other, then you get the ionic pillar of wisdom, the divine child action principle, the illuminated all-seeing eye. This corresponds to the celestial North Pole star. I'll show you what I mean by that in the second half of this presentation. So this middle pillar represents Jacob's ladder, the journey to find care and balance within. It's the journey from light to dark, from the bottom right to the top left. I could go on and on about this board and the position, but the main thing is to understand this symbol in its positioning of the sun, the moon, and the all-seeing eye, as well as their correspondence to the brain. Also pay attention to the four directions, which is north, south, east, and west, located on the four sides. When flipped on its side, with south at the bottom, we see more revealed in this archetypal symbol. We clearly see the same positioning as my last slide, with the sun at the top and the moon at the bottom. I'm not going to cover this, but I just want you to see the positioning and the capital letter E made from the floor and the three pillars, which stands for a few things, but mostly it's important to note it stands for equator. It's about astrotheology and the path of the sun and the zodiac. Some may ask, why I use this image so much in my work. It's because it has everything to do with helping initiate the student into the mysteries, into, true esotericism. More importantly, it's a symbol of sacred science that I know can help us stay oriented in the world of archetypes and corresponding axioms or principles of astrotheology. This is an image of balance assembling our knowledge through archetypes to unravel the occult. And once this symbol is understood, one will have many important corresponding keys to the universe and many of its mysteries. These next few slides I'll be covering are some archetypal Freemasonic science. So here is an Arab triple goddess or Arab triune goddess archetype, which came before Islam, which may go back to the time of Sumer. I'm not saying this picture is that old, but these sciences are, and then some. This is basically the aspects of the black cube or Kaaba of Mecca. I'm not going to, get into the details, but I just want you to pay attention to the symbols, the stars, the sun, and the moon. And that's a feminine triune goddess. This is called the Nebra sky disk. It is the oldest known celestial sky chart ever found and supposedly around 3,500 years old, which I believe may be much older than that. It is said that the cluster of 7 stars are the sisters of Pleiades in the constellation of Taurus, and it is among the nearest star clusters to Earth, and is said that the cluster is most obvious to the naked eye in the night sky. In March, the crescent moon is seen with Pleiades behind it, which is really important to note. It's my contention that the cluster of the 7 stars is the Little Bear, or Ursa Minor, and I'll show you why shortly. But as you can see, there is a sun, a moon, and the stars, but also 2 pillars. One is missing on the left. And because this archetypal symbol is round and originally had a black background, which represents the black waters of space, which symbolizes the Great Mother, it then becomes clear that this is a feminine expression of Freemasonry. The barge, or wide U-shaped symbol under the moon and sun, could also represent the chalice or womb of the universe. I've even read that it means mother of pearl. I'll also get more into that soon. And it's kind of ironic that it's missing the masculine pillar on the left. I highly recommend looking into this artifact, this sacred science. The story behind it is pretty fascinating, to say the least. And again, I want you to pay attention to the symbols. Even the artifacts, near this disc were interesting. As you can see, 2 axes and 2 swords, and 2 armlets as well. I believe this may be a helpful key to better understand the evolution of the mythos. And now I'm going to throw you off a little bit. Not really. This is a picture by NASA of the Eagle Nebula called the Pillars of Creation, which is found in the constellation Serpens. Now, obviously, this is not a symbol or any archetype, just an awesome image of a nebula out in space. But what I want people to be aware of is, even if this isn't esoteric or have any significance in the mysteries, it's important and healthy to think about the reason for the name and where the coordinates of the nebula is, and see if it reveals anything to you. I just want to make mention of the mythos, a topic I find to be pretty important and powerful. I know I'll expand on the mythos in the future, and I almost feel I may be doing a disservice here by not going more in depth on this topic, but I also feel it is necessary in this case because it would be wrong to not mention a few important key points regarding the science of the mythos and its symbols before expanding on Freemasonry and the mind. What I'm covering is an important portion of the why the pyramids were formed. Modern religion is a degradation of the mythos, the stellar, the lunar, and the solar mythos. These are hero cults evolving from some 300,000 years ago, starting with the stellar cult and all the way up into where we are still under the umbrella of the solar cult, it's the sun worship. The main thing to understand without going too deep on this is the pyramids were built as archetypes to store sacred information that reconnects us to our origins and evolution of religion. It connects us to our ancient elders and ancient wisdom. The stellar people were the pyramid builders, and they stored all things seven within the form of these pyramids. And the stellar people were also smart enough to know that the pyramids could be destroyed, so they venerated or stored the information into the zoo-type constellation of the little bear, Ursa Minor. This is where the ancient Egyptian hero Horus begins. So that's very, very important. I'm going to re-emphasize that. The stellar people were also smart enough to know that the pyramids could be destroyed. So they venerated or stored the information into the zoo-type constellation of the little bear, Ursa Minor, the Most High. This is where the ancient Egyptian hero Horus began. What I really want to get across in this slide is that the middle stellar pyramid is the triangle on top of the square, the spiritual over the physical, the 3 over the 4. It is the 7. It's important to note that when I'm using the word cult in this context, it doesn't mean evil or religious necessarily. It means culture. It means to cultivate, when to plant and when to harvest. There's a lot more to it, but we have to stay oriented and understand that. I highly recommend the work of Douglas Martin on this topic, and also Albert Churchward and Gerald Massey. Freemasonry itself traces back its roots to the dawn of the Egyptian mysteries, with many parallels to Masonic glyphs and the structures found in Egyptian works like the Book of the Dead. Freemasonry is at the center of all the mystery traditions. You might ask yourself, what's the point of all this? What is the biggest reason this type of science is so important? Whenever I talk about 2 + 2 = 4 or 1 + 1 = 2, I sometimes get people arguing with me saying, well, is it really 2 though? I mean, how do we know for sure? I actually get this more often than not. And the answer is really simple when it comes to this Freemasonic science, or you just think common sense, math in general. We simply can't know and understand the 1 without the 2. We can't understand the point of the whole or point without the whole. This is where we get the big question. What's the point of all this? Which I'm going to cover shortly. It's about understanding duality in order to understand the whole, or the 1, or the all, or God, or the underlining intelligence in all that is. And, when I use the word God, I'm comfortable with that word, okay? Especially using it in this context. And just a reminder about the word religion, it is from the Latin word religare, meaning to tie back, to hold back, to bind fast, to thwart forward progress, to keep one from raising consciousness, essentially. It doesn't mean to reconnect. It just means to hold back or bind by tying. The prefix re, R-E, means back, and then lig, L-I-G, is the Latin suffix meaning to bind or tie. It's about binding. People have a really tough time understanding the difference between religion and religions, plural. Religions, as we know them, are the institutions formed by and tied together by belief in their teachings and their views. Religion itself is anything that may hold us back from forward progress in consciousness. An example would be like the belief in authority. That's a form of religion. The belief in carnism, the monetary system, the belief in rulers. These are all forms of religion. These next few slides are going to be some extreme generalizations of three major world religions along with some corresponding symbolism. I know there are some other, major religions with many followers, but Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are what we need to understand, especially with what's happening between them and how powerful their symbols really are on our minds. I was raised mostly in the Catholic tradition the first 10 to 15 years of my life, so I'm going to start with Christianity. Christianity is mostly found in the Western Hemisphere of Earth, and it contains mainly the most dominant dominators, and it's mostly disproportionately left-brained, so it left-brained imbalance, and it's government, and there's the lack of the sacred feminine. It's about controlling, and mostly based in our complex or reptilian brain. It's heavy in material worship, and it's obsessed with survival. It's associated with the blade symbol, solar cult, sun god, solar mythos, solar center ego, target, crossroads, the cross, yang energy, male religion, and currently contains about 2.4 billion followers. And the major Christian holidays would be, December 25th, the birthday of Jesus of Nazareth. Lent is all 40 days before Easter. Good Friday is the first day before Easter, representing the crucifixion of Jesus, and Easter Sunday celebrates the resurrection of Jesus. A little more to add about the story and the beliefs that I feel is important is Christians believe Jesus was sent by God, that he is the Son of God, who was born of the Virgin Mary. He is the Messiah foretold in the Old Testament. Jewish people believe the Old Testament tells the forecoming of a Messiah that was not Jesus, and people that are Christian believe Jesus Christ is the Messiah. They believe Jesus was sent to please the sin of man, that man is born with sin, and because Jesus died on a cross and suffered in hell for 3 days and was resurrected, that he did that to cleanse man of sin. And in order to be a Christian, you need to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, which is the holy way to get to the kingdom of heaven when you die. This is different in other religions because most other religions don't believe that you have to accept their faith in order to be saved. Christians believe that if you don't accept Jesus Christ, that when you die, you won't be able to enter the kingdom of heaven. They also believe that Jesus will return one day, and that will be the judgment day found in the book of Revelations. Jewish people believe Jesus was either a true or false prophet. People of the Islamic faith believe Jesus was a great prophet and believe that Jesus will come back and rule over the world. And this is Muslims that believe that. They even have a space next to their prophet Muhammad that's awaiting the body of Jesus of Nazareth. There's also the belief that Jesus performed miracles, that he could, cure the blind. He raised the dead, that he turned water into wine. Judaism is found everywhere. It contains roots in Christianity and Islam, It's about the chosen ones. It's stellar symbolism, like the Star of David. The stellar sect, based in the belief in Saturn as the primary object in the heavens because it is the furthest planet out with the naked eye and orbits around all the other planets, which means it rules them or encircles around them. Then there's the Elohim, which is plural and means stars and planets, many lights of the heavens. The middle pillar of earth, Middle East, belief that Jesus was a great prophet but not Messiah. And the three kings of Israel, which are King Saul, King David, and King Solomon, and Yahweh, which equals God. And just a little bit extra biblical history to understand. Canaan, aka Israel or Palestine, is the ancient word for the land that the Jewish people believed was promised to them from the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Jews are Hebrew people originated in the city of Sumer, in ancient Mesopotamia. In the first of the 5 books of the Old Testament, Genesis, Abraham was contacted by God himself, which is monotheism. Abraham makes a covenant or deal with God. God says, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great." Abraham had 2 sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael is the son of Hagar, Abraham's slave, which goes on to form Islam. Isaac continues with the covenant or deal into Israel. Abraham was 75, and around 1300 BC, the Jews or Hebrews became slaves in Egypt, and Moses became the leader who helps get the Hebrew people out of Egypt. Islam is found mostly in the eastern hemisphere of Earth. Of course, it's found just about everywhere else too. Islam makes up about 1.6 billion of the Earth's population. It contains the great prophet Muhammad, the founder of Islam. It was established, supposedly, in 620 AD. The word Quran is the literal word of God. It's about lunar symbolism, moon religion. Islam means to submit to God. It's about right-brained, surrender to God, yin energy, chalice symbol. Moses was the moon god. The main city is Mecca, which literally translates to mother city. It's about Isis, and Muslims walk counterclockwise 7 times around the black Kaaba shrine, the black hole in the center of the Milky Way spiral galaxy, or Masonic circle around the square. All the men are wearing white, representing the stars, because it's a goddess tradition. Blackness of night created out of blackness of darkness and sacred feminine. The old mother who gave birth to all her sons. It's about being creative. It's the lunar cult, lunar mythos, and it's the cult of the moon. And some extra historical information on Islam. Mecca was first established the year 570 as the year of the elephant, which I find very interesting. Muslims' first city is in Medina. There's 5 pillars of Islam, which is the declaration of faith, obligatory prayer, compulsory giving, fasting the month of Ramadan, and the 5th pillar is the pilgrimage to Mecca. Just keep in mind, Moses and the 10 Commandments is at the root of all 3 of these religions, along with Abraham doctrine. I know I'm leaving so much out, but I'm really just trying to give us general ideas so we can move forward to bigger pictures and wider perspectives and, stay oriented. Here is the wheel of the zodiac or zodiac, which is what the ancients told scientific stories with to understand the seasons better. This may have been the first religion of man as well. All of these religions I just covered share this map in common. They are astrotheology in disguise. It is the worship of the gods in the sky, or the planetary bodies and stars, to be more literal. And of course, this includes the visibly large bodies of the sun and the moon. The ancients quartered the circle with a cross to create the 4 seasons to better understand the nature of a full Earth cycle around the sun. Of course, they also understood this was in direct correspondence to the hero myth, going from ignorance, darkness and birth, then on to growth and illumination, which is about enlightenment or light, the sun's peak in the day sky of the summer solstice. Then on to the autumn equinox, which is fall or falling, back down to coldness, decay, sleep, death. When it comes to astrotheology, it's important to pay attention to numbers, solar positions, seasons, zootypes, which are the constellations, and how it all corresponds to allegories like the journey of the hero. It's about morality. It's how symbols help us understand the world around us. It's about the solar ecliptic path of the sun and how it moves through each house to help us understand agriculture. The ecliptic is an imaginary line on the sky that marks the annual path of the sun. It's the projection of the Earth's orbit on the celestial sphere. I'm not going to get into the precession of the equinoxes, but just keep in mind it's about the sun seemingly moving through each constellation of each house of the zodiac. It's how we understand that agriculture through knowing the seasons. It's about when to plant and when to harvest. It's about fertility, seeing patterns naturally when it comes to, time to plant. The list goes on, and looking at the 12 signs, it's obviously the 12 months or months. It's also the 12 apostles, the 12 disciples, the 12 leaders, the 12 major religious revelations, the 12 nights of the round table, and 12 hours of the clock. There's much more to this, and there's a lot more about the 12. I just want you to pay attention to the houses, the cardinal points, which are both equinoxes and both solstices, and the seasons, which respect the solar path. The sun is the principal symbol of deity and represents order, life, resurrection, fertility, and inwardly illumination of the soul. Of course, the archetypal Jesus and Horus are venerated as the sun in the zodiac. So starting in the spring equinox, this represents birth, starting in the house of Aries, the ram, which there's definitely no coincidence that the symbol under the zootype resembles the female sex organs of the vulva, which strengthens the science as the rebirth of the sun. So the SUN or the SON. The spring equinox represents rising out of the dark or dead, the horizon, Horus, rising, regeneration, when to plant, and the beginning of the spiritual journey. So from 0 degrees in Aries, spring equinox, up on through Taurus, into Gemini to the Tropic of Cancer at 23.5 degrees north latitude of the Earth. This is the highest point and the longest day. The Tropic of Cancer, Seer, got to give Brandon Martin credit for that one. That is the highest point. So summer solstice is about growth, illumination, life, and light. It's the principle of Horus as Ra, the Most High in the ancient Egyptian solar mythos. Then on down through Leo and Virgo, we see the sun fall into autumn equinox, into Libra, where life starts to decay, where it's time to harvest. leaves turn color and fall. It gets cooler. It's about descending into the underworld, where the sun is going further south towards his death. Winter solstice represents decay, ignorance, death, darkness. Ignorance is represented by the darkness, the lack of the internal realization of good or God. It all corresponds to the inner self. Materialism is part of this dark journey, and it is the lowest form of our being in many, many ways. So think about how we act in the months of November and December. So many people, killing themselves to get gifts for people they don't even really care about, more than likely. This is the time of the year when the sun goes to its lowest point, or seemingly dies on December 21st, as the following 3 days are the shortest in sunlight and the longest in darkness. So this is the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. This is when it is said that the sun dies upon the cross of the zodiac. Then, as many of us know, the sun is born on the 25th, where it is visibly noticeable that the sun has risen again. You could also say the 3 days following his death are correlating the 3 houses, including Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Pisces is all about the birth canal. It's, like the fish coming out of the water onto land. It's the symbol of the uni, or the vagina. It's important to note that Easter Sunday, East Star Sun Day, occurs after the first full moon, symbolizing the lunar goddess Mary is full because she's pregnant with her son, which he then rises again into the northern hemisphere out of his tomb or womb. Either way, out of darkness, out of the waters of darkness. The waters of the night sky. So it's all about birth, growth, decay. It's the hero's journey. It's Horus's hero myth, or the archetypal, allegorical, spiritual journey of Jesus. It's a hidden moral message to help us understand ourselves better and understand the beauty of cycles. Here we see Horus, Osiris, and Isis. This is an ancient Egyptian cosmological science of astrotheology and triune consciousness in the solar mythos. The solar mythos. Horus, the golden falcon, who we see on the left, is the ancient Egyptian sun god of the day sky. He becomes Ra, or Amen-Ra, at the peak of the day when the sun is at its highest point. And keep in mind, Horus is ultimately the hero in the solar mythos, but when he is at the highest point of the day sky, he then becomes Ra, or Re. The vowels are universal, which is where we get the word ray of light. And when Christians say a prayer, usually they say Amen following that prayer. So solar, or the sun, symbolizes yang male energy, so I'm placing the male blade on the sun on the left hemisphere of the earth. The sect of astrotheology that deals with the stars and planets is Osiris, the creator god. He was the ruler of Saturn in Phoenicia Canaan. Saturn, being the furthest visible planetary body, symbolizes the rulership over all other planetary bodies in the solar system, because it is seemingly the furthest orbiting planet out and encompasses all the rest. Obviously with the naked eye. Ancient Semitic religions referred to Osiris as El, or God. So El. And in Judaism, the religion is of the star, or the stars and the planets, the small lights in the heavens. Then the name of their god, or gods plural, which is Elohim, translates to stars and planets. And I'll expand more on that soon. The lunar sect of astrotheology is named after the moon goddess, Isis, which is the main moon religion, and the main moon religion is Islam on the eastern side or right hemisphere of the earth. And like I said, Islam means to submit to God, which is a feminine principle. This is the yin or chalice female energy, right brain energy, right brain aspect. So that's Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, which create Israel. It's pretty fascinating. And yes, it's real. On this slide, I want you to pretend you're looking at the back of the human brain where we see the left and right hemisphere. We see a left and right brain, west and east, left and right. We see the Western religion of Christianity with the masculine symbol, and on the right is the feminine symbol of Islam, the right hemisphere. Just think about all the major wars going on and where they have been going on. The Middle East, right in the Middle East. We get oil from the Middle East, where the cerebellum is at, which is, part of the R complex located at the back of the brain, which delegates motor skills, which controls movement of our bodies, like our ability to run or swim or anything to do with movement. Then we think, what is making motion possible? What makes our transportation possible? It's oil. And oil is mostly being extracted from this region of the earth. So basically, when thinking about the earth as a brain and oil is being extracted from the cerebellum, it's like the whole earth brain is being powered by the R complex, which corresponds to our survival mode, behaviors powered by the R complex of the human brain. This is why we are in survival mode when it comes to oil and gas. We act like, we'll die or not survive without our oil for our cars and other products. We have to look at us on a small scale and how we are acting and seeing how that corresponds to the big scale and what's taking place there. The left brain is acting like the right brain over control of the, hind brain or lower back brain of the earth, keeping consciousness in the R complex within the war for Middle Eastern oil or Christos oil, earth blood, essentially. Definitely comparing this to the Middle Earth of Lord of the Rings, where all the chaos and war is taking place. If you've ever seen that, it's very, very similar. As the individual units of consciousness upon the planet become imbalanced towards the, one polarity or the other, we'll see the reflection happen on the grand scale of the earth as a brain. And I'm not going to get into the wobble of the earth. I just want to mention that I believe it's possible that the reason is due to our imbalance. Or, maybe because it's correspondence that the imbalance of the earth or the wobble of the earth is what creates the, maybe the imbalance in us. Who knows? So whatever imbalance we are in collectively, then so does the same imbalance manifest into the whole brain of the earth. If we are in survival mode, trapped in our complex all the time, then the result is reflected as chaos at the cerebellum of Earth, the Middle East. So keep in mind where the split is and how it goes through the Nile Valley. And even the Earth's crust is likened to the telencephalon, or outer layer of the neocortex of the brain. So that's very interesting. I'm putting the pillars on the earth brain to help us see the connection better to the science in Solomon's temple in correspondence to our brain. The left pillar is the solar principle. The middle pillar is the stellar principle, stars and planets. And to the right is the lunar principle, the moon. It's important to share this to help us stay oriented in our mind to what these principles embody. I'm showing our whole brain, or earth brain, divided into 3 religious sects, but it's all about how the aspects correspond to our brains. We have to make sure we understand this. The left pillar would be Christianity, the middle would be Judaism, and the right is Islam. The left pillar is masculine, the blade, and the right is the feminine chalice. Together creates the hexagram, but not unity, because we are talking about religion here. There's no unity in these religions. Okay, so Judaism is not the unity between Christianity and Islam. Now, just let me explain a little bit more about that. The left pillar represents the left brain, and the right pillar, of course, is the right brain. The days of the week that these religions are celebrated is Sunday for Christians on the sun's day, then Saturday, Saturn Day, celebrated as the Sabbath by the Jews, and Monday, or Moon Day, by the Muslims. The Western religion would be, of course, Christianity, then Judaism would be the middle, or Middle East, and Islam and Eastern religion. The Vatican is central for Christianity, or Catholicism, the solar cult. Then Jerusalem is the city of Judaism and Israel, and on over to the mother city, which is Mecca, as central to Islam, the lunar cult. And don't forget about Israel. All these religions are male-dominator patriarchal religions. It's about where each major religion is concentrated throughout the world. Christianity, the solar cult, is the most dominant religion. It's all about that left brain principle. So we're more in a left brain dominant world, a more robotic dominant world. The problem of all these religions is it's about control, and that's what the left brain does. It controls. That's the left brain is governing, which controls. So the more people that are in a left brain dominant mindset are going to be more in the mindset to control, and control the exterior. We can't understand the world we live in without understanding these symbols and religions and how they directly affect our minds. We can't know how our minds are being heavily dominated by these cults, whether one believes it to be true or not. The science is right here. It's all in here. I'm trying so hard to convey this science, because once we understand this, we will understand what is actually taking place in our minds and how we are being heavily influenced by these symbols, by these religions, and essentially, how these cults play out in the world. Subversive symbolism is the subliminal undermining of the public by usage of words, images, colors, numbers, symbols, anagrams, and rhythms, which are directed into the subconscious mind. Many symbols are used to sell us something unhealthy by putting symbols of health and purity on the labels as a sort of proxy. I'll give examples in a minute. This is, really important to try and make the connection of how symbols can be used to sell us products and keep us in the box of consumerism. So I actually did a little experiment a few years ago because I was curious to see what cult symbols on logos were being used to sell certain products. And I did this by decoding or simply observing the symbols used on each label. I mostly chose liquid since it was what I was fascinated with the most when I first started getting into breaking down the symbol meanings. That's because you can literally walk into a 7-L even or a 7-Eleven and you can just break down just about all the symbols on every single bottle of drinks. Mostly every single label is mainstream as well, which is good to keep in mind. So first, I'm going to do a sort of rundown of the solar, stellar, and lunar cults subversive symbol usage, and then I'll show the whole chart as a result, which is very interesting. The first one has to do with solar symbols. And just to be clear, symbol isn't just a design or logo. It's names and it's colors and it's anagrams and so on. So in the solar cult, the sun, or Christianity, you see, just look right in between the pillars in Citibank. You see the arch and the T. You see the rays of sun and all the different logos. And you see Sun Trust, Sun Core, 76 is a sun, Sun Oko. Taco Bell has the bell hiding the sun. It's covering the light. You have Sun Drop. You have Pop with the solar symbol in it. Sprite, even though it's a lemon, it's still a yellow and in like a horizon. You have Soul Beer. You have Miller Lite. You just see it everywhere. Look at Corona. Corona is the rays of light. Natural light. Obviously, you're not going to find anything, any kind of natural light when drinking alcohol. So then looking at the stellar cult, the stars and the planets, you see, Star Bank, 5-star bank. So all these banks with stars, Constellation Energy, Walmart with the 6-pointed star, Carl's Jr., Starbucks, Mon Star, and you see, a monster is a really interesting one because it actually has the cross and the MON, and it's also, and I'm going to show it here in a second, but it's also, moon. So MON is moon. So it's moon star, but it has the cross and the O. So it's all, it's all three symbols all put together. And it could be 777, but in Hebrew it's also 666. Very interesting. So mark of the beast. It even talks about unleash the beast. Then you have, Sapporo has the star. Stella is stellar, which is stars, and so on. Lone Star. So, it just goes on and on and on. So then we have the lunar cult symbolism, the moon. And you see, Luna Bar, Starbucks has the moon crescent above the head of the girl, the double finned mermaid, and then you have Shock Top with the moon shape, the blue moon. Arrogant Bastard, gargoyles are always associated with the moon and the night sky, moonshine, etc. So here's the whole chart, and I know there's a lot more to add, but my point here is the correspondence of dominance in these logos and products being sold, especially here in this country, and how this dominance aligns with the actual dominance of Christianity as a religion throughout the world. So, as you see that, there's a lot more solar logos being sold to our subconscious than there is lunar. Obviously, this is just my interpretation. This is what I've seen. This is what I found. Maybe you find something different, but it's just interesting how it corresponds to the dominance of the world. Also, it's interesting that all these products have something to do with liquid, like the maritime law. So here's a picture of our red and blue walnut. I feel it's important, obviously this is just, I'm using these colors as symbols. So just please bear with me and pay attention. I feel it's important to cover the worldwide polarization dialectics, aka mental schism. This is about the two dialectics or false choices that people are kept in by the dark occultists of this world. But I would say so many people also just don't care enough to see this type of information, which is why they're kept in these schisms. So, on this chart looking at the left brain, this is the masculine master think dominance through being over intellectual or aggressive, assertive, heavily dismissive, and authoritative. This is associated with the color red because red is the lowest frequency in the color of aggression and survival mode while suppressing emotion, causing us to be in reptile mode or centralized in our complex brain where ego is most powerful. This is the dialectic of government, which works through the left brain and binds the right brain from proper operation. This is how the left brain becomes more dominant. So this goes back to what I was just talking about with that chart. There really isn't any creativity or compassion found here. Government doesn't create because it can't. It's about violence onto, those who disobey orders or those who don't willingly hand over a portion of their hard-earned wages. It takes away rather than creating. And yes, government is a religion as well. Sadly, one most people support and believe in. But I think that's, going to come to an end someday. Now, looking at the right brain hemisphere, this is the feminine slave think dominance in intuition, submissive behavior, which is also passive, overly naive, and overall obedient. This is associated with the color blue because blue is the frequency of receiving or submitting, which when imbalanced and dominant, it then creates the survival instincts to be shut down, keeping us more centralized in our limbic brain and passive. This is the dialectic of religion, which works through the right brain and binds the left brain from proper operation. The similar imbalance that we see in both hemispheres is the dogmatic belief in government and its legitimacy. The right brain is more obedient and submissive when in an imbalance. Being in this imbalance causes the left brain logical functions to be suppressed, which causes blind faith and naivete. Seeing that these aspects can really divide our minds, it's important to see the belief associated with these imbalances that really cause separation. Looking back at the left brain, we see that if this part of the brain is chronically dominant, it can lead to rigid skepticism, scientism, atheism, solipsism, moral relativism, social Darwinism, eugenics, and, of course, authoritarianism, so government. If the right brain is chronically dominant, it most likely will lead to naivete or blind belief or religious extremism, also solipsism, unworthiness, self-loathing, order following or supporting it, and being a willing slave. This is the whole reason religious people are waiting on a savior of some kind, like Jesus or some kind of alien race, which is the same mindset as waiting on a president or government to save them. It's about giving up personal responsibility and getting, caught up in groupthink, where people just go with what's popular as truth. This all falls under the umbrella of mind control. It's about keeping people divided within to keep them divided outwardly. It's about keeping us in opposition with ourselves and the darker culture in all knowing of our brain schisms. They know what strings to pull to get us to bend the knee, if you will. All because we don't know this type of deep knowledge about ourselves. And it doesn't take a brain scientist to figure this out. It's just, pay attention and want to know. We have to put time into wanting to know. And we'll know. We'll figure it out. It's not that hard. You just, it's laziness and cowardice that keep us from knowing this type of knowledge. But it's very empowering once we do know. Dualization of the mind is the divide from nature. It is the illusion of separation from all that is. To be or stay in this state is to ignore all the glory that is truly you. And the word you is green because green is in the middle of the visible spectrum of color between red and blue. Green is the color of balance, nature. It's the best foods to eat that are green. So the word you as green is the balanced version of you, because it's going to take a balanced you to manifest a more balanced world. So that means you got to do the work on yourself in order to project balance back into the world, because you can't give somebody something you don't have. It has the potential to bridge the gap between our hemispheres by working on the parts that are imbalanced. This is a really fascinating symbol right here. We have to understand this symbol to really see what a mess we are in when it comes to authority and slavery. This is the Interpol symbol, International Police. Inter, as a verb, means to place in a grave, especially a corpse. So and then you see pole ice. Both the north and the south poles of Earth are iced. Our knucklehead order following immoral brothers and sisters are being mocked by the dark occult. They're masters. The word police is about the correspondence of both brain hemispheres being iced. Look at their, globe symbol. It's blue and cold and dark. There's no green or brown. The land is, a dark, deep blue. There's no color in the, olive branches. There's even a golden King Arthur Excalibur sword piercing downwardly through both iced poles, splitting the hemispheres. It's kind of like the sword and the stone, of course, the false version. The fool's version, fool's gold, and the false scales. So everything I just talked about with the colors of red and blue also apply here. The cops E's even have the colors flashing in an imbalance on top of their cars. It's all right in this symbol. It's all right on top of their cars. And by the way, OIPC stands for International Criminal Police Organization, and ICPO is French for the same thing. So, just in case you were wondering. But yeah, this is a very, 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 very dark symbol, and it's very, very good to be aware of these types of symbols and what they actually mean. This is the world view schism expressed as the political spectrum between the left versus the right. The left mimics the mama archetype, which seeks to be the provider and universal care, whereas the right mimics the masculine papa archetype, which emphasizes personal responsibility and freedom to achieve and forge one's destiny. But as we see, both of these dialectics are corrupt, as the left seeks to provide through the immoral government, and the right seeks to achieve positions of corporate and political power in that immoral system, supporting the military to, wage imperialism. There's a lot more to that. The obvious thing to recognize is the two wings of the same bird. I don't know how people just completely ignore this or miss this. The eagle, or bird head, being spiritual, is descending or falling in consciousness. And this is a symbol that I made because this is exactly what's happening. Bird head is very, very sacred because it's about ascension. So what I'm trying to express right here is that when the bird head is down and the wings are above the bird head and they're, split, in nature, when a bird is flying like this, that means that the bird is going downward. So it's very important to notice that our political system is definitely very divided, and the spiritual realm is between the two is descending and to go into complete darkness. So the eagle or bird head, being spiritual, is descending or falling in consciousness. The dark occult satanic ritual that is being used to enslave us is the left and right two-party government system. The far left, alt-left, versus the far right, alt-right, is the fact that the division of, or the imbalance of the divorce of the divine masculine and divine feminine union. The right masculine, red Republican, versus the left feminine, blue Democrat, keeping society imbalanced and divided to enslave and control. This is the master-slave relationship. Natural law is being used against us because we are kept from understanding its true power. Our true inherent power. The divine union of the masculine and feminine gives birth to the Christ consciousness, the Savior, the Redeemer, the Liberator, the balance between severity and mercy, severity with compassion and mercy with wisdom. To play those millions of minds, to watch them slowly respond to an unseen stimulus, to guide their aspirations without their knowledge. All this, whether in high capacities or in humble, is a big and endless game of chess, of ever extraordinary excitement. And this is a quote by Sidney Webb, founder of the Fabian Society. And if you're not familiar with the Fabian Society, I definitely recommend looking into it. It was founded as a socialist society think tank, basically the dark occult influencing politics. You can even see, right in their coat of arms, the symbol at the top. It's a wolf with sheep's clothing, the heraldic tincture. If you want to control a people, give them two lies and let them fight over which one is the truth. Just know that division inside, that's co-creating the division outside. We are being played by the hidden hands. Looking at this archetypal symbol of the hemispheres fighting, we see the cross used as a sword by the left brain and the moon as a sickle by the right brain. They are fighting an endless chaos on the checkerboard floor, base consciousness. This is the area we are wanted in because this is where pawns are controlled the best, where there is no spirituality at all. Total materialism, not even an attempt. This is the harsh reality of the walking dead, up and out of the casket, but not uniting to find truth. As you can see, all the golden tools are laying on the ground, just ignored. Anyway, there's a lot more to this piece, and I'm hoping you'll use your imagination and knowledge to see what else it unveils. So just know that the divide between men and women has to do with not understanding knowledge like this, And that is where the divide starts between female and male. So we have to unite ourselves in order to find unity and common ground. And I'm going to get into that. Solomon's Temple is us, and it's a science of us going on our individual journey from dark to light. It's about uniting the left brain aspects with the right brain aspects into a free think mind, a balanced brain, bringing the left-brained intellect or intel together with gens of the generative or creative principle to create intelligence. It's about our conscience and choosing right action over wrong action. So morality, being moral. We've known for thousands and thousands of years that we can't really know the macrocosm, so we assembled the archetypal models like this tracing board or trestle board as a microcosm self. So knowing and understanding knowledge of self, the microcosm, while understanding the law of correspondence, gives us an understanding of the macrocosm. This is the key to unlocking many, many mysteries. The goal is to bring our perceptions in harmony with that which is truth. So bringing the self into alignment with truth requires our perceptions to also harmonize with natural law, seeing what goes on around us with respect to what's going on inside us. It's about our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. As we think, so we feel, and so we act, and then bringing these three aspects of self into alignment with natural law. Now I'm going to go more into the solar, lunar, and stellar cults and the mythos. First, let's take a look at the solar system, or what I call the solar matrix system. When we look at the word solar, it's the adjective from Latin meaning solaris, of the sun. Then system as a noun is also known as the whole creation, the universe. And then system from Greek ironically means sun, which means with, and then histani, which means set up. So set up. And then matrix from Latin means womb or mother. So it's all leading to the sun of creation set up within the womb. That's the positive aspect of the solar system. But what we also have to see is it's the veiled system of solar cult, the male dominator authority. I'm not saying we aren't in an actual solar system, not at all. But what I am saying is that in order to have lots and lots of control and authority, I'd say it was done very well by cloaking the space-time natural solar system with solar cult overlap. Okay? Solar religious cult overlap. Basically, male dominator doctrine, which controls, just about every aspect of our solar system, thus our lives. All with the sun at the center and everything else revolving around it. So the agenda of complete male domination isn't just on Earth, it's literally the whole solar system and then some. Heavy mind control, I might add. Thousands of years plus, masculine imbalances proportioned to robot think, and thus the manifestation of actual robots, as we are definitely seeing being deployed so much every single day. You're seeing more and more, robots coming out into the mainstream. So it's here, and time's up. The circle dot has represented many things, but especially the sun and solar system. It also symbolizes the Egyptian god Ra. It represents monism and was once the alchemical symbol for gold being the most perfect of the metals. For the alchemist, it represents the perfection of all matter on any level, including that of the mind, spirit, and soul. It's also a symbolic phallus or generative principle. This is well known as a solar symbol, but it's an overlap. We also have to see it is the veiled system of solar cult. We can also see this masculine solar cult symbol is an emanation of the stellar symbol, which I'll cover shortly. Keep in mind that Mother Mary is Isis in modern form. These are archetypal lunar or moon goddesses venerated in the moon and its cycles. They are lunar symbols. This is the sacred science of the divine feminine energy. It's important to understand how these archetypes play key roles in the solar cult. And I just threw in this picture of a solar eclipse because I wanted to show the marriage between the sun and the moon, and it creates the ring, with the light, kind of like a diamond ring. So I believe that is where, the idea for the ring comes from, for marriage. Kaaba is a shrine of the sacred stone of Mecca, formerly dedicated to the pre-Islamic triple goddess Manat, Allah, and Al-Zua, the old woman, worshipped by Muhammad's tribesmen, the Qurayshites. The stone was also called the Kuba, or Kub, and has been linked to the name of Cybele, the great mother of the gods. The stone bore the emblem of the yoni, the female sex. It is now regarded as the holy center of the patriarchal Islam, and its feminine symbolism has been lost, though priests of the Kaaba are still known as the sons of the old woman. This is the ancient stone building toward which Muslims pray in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The black stone was revered well before preaching of Islam by Muhammad. By the time of Muhammad, it was already associated with the Kaaba, a pre-Islamic shrine that was revered as a sacred sanctuary and a site of pilgrimage. Prior to Islam, the Kaaba was covered in symbols representing the myriad demons, the jinn, demigods, or simply the tribal gods and other asserted deities which represented the polytheistic culture of pre-Islamic Arabia. The Kaaba was, at some point, contained 360 idols that probably represented the days of the year or were effigies of the Arabian pantheon. But by Muhammad's day, the Kaaba was venerated as the shrine of Allah, the Most High. The earliest reference we have to the goddess worshipped as a cube-shaped stone is from Neolithic Anatolia. Alternatively, Kubaba may mean a hollow vessel or cave, which would still be a supreme image of the goddess. The ideograms for Kubaba in the Hittite alphabet are a cube, a double-headed axe, a dove, a vase, and a door or gate, all images of the goddess in Neolithic Europe. The sacred stone of the Kaaba is equivalent to the quote-unquote navel of the world, and I will cover more of what that meaning is in a bit. Saturn, also known as the Lord of the Rings, is identified with the Greek deity Kronos. So it could be Kronos or Cronus, who is known as the keeper of time. Like I said, Saturn encompasses the rest of the planets in the solar system, and Kronos, when broken down etymologically and phonetically through green language, literally means to glow around us. The etymology of Kron is corona and then us. So Kron us, or glow around us, encompass us. Semitic civilizations referred to the god Saturn as El, and this supreme deity was represented by a black cube because the black cube encompasses all life. And also think about the second hand on the clock. It's like a Saturnian matrix, and black because it is the opposite of the light of the sun, which also corresponds to the Vedic chakra system as the lowest or base chakra, the root. Elohim in Hebrew is plural for gods, and I touched on that earlier. Gods is gods in the heavens, or it also means wanderers. So Elohim is actually feminine plural. So in the astrotheological tradition, the Hebrew people believed more than one god, which is a form of polytheism, basically the belief in many gods. Judaism is a Saturnian-based religion. Their symbol is literally a star, which I want to emphasize here in a sec. I find very wild that this hexagonal shape just happens to be the North Pole of this planet. Also keep in mind, what is it that creates that shape? And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier with cymatics. So it's all about the principle of vibration and sound. So back on the cube, the black cube could be likened to a box of all possibilities and dead ends, or 3D material worldview. It also symbolizes the black hole of the universe. It's the womb with all the stars in it. This cube or box or labyrinth is about starting in ignorance like a rat in a maze. The point of life is to figure out the maze. And it's not a physical maze. It's not just some, dumb box or cube. It's intelligence. It's paradoxical. It has no beginning and no end, like a strange loop. No one can tell you how to solve your own maze. We're all on our own journey. The maze that is you, it's your mind. The beauty of the maze is the journey. It's, full of traps or cul-de-sacs. And some people spend years in one trap. Some examples would be like someone spending 20 years in an abusive relationship, or someone spending 30 years watching and focusing on football or just, TV in general. Some people spend 40 plus years on studying extraterrestrials. Many even spend their whole life chasing money. The point is, there are many, many traps or cul-de-sacs, but it is the cleverness of our intelligent minds that keep moving in, out, and all around all the traps of the maze to get closer and closer to understanding the greater meaning of all that is, which is really only something you can discover yourself. Contemplating and staying open to all the possibilities and seeing how they all relate, that's what healthy research is like. That's what helps us understand the cube, the box. And that's what will ultimately free us from the maze. This is about the journey of the hero. So here is the cube unfoldment. And we see the traditional Latin cross as the result in this vertically symmetrical unfoldment. And the cube can be unfolded into what we see to be the capital T, but it also represents double power, the gavel, the hammer. It also is the axe. It's very important to keep in mind. So here we see a modern gavel, or what's also known as a patriarchal cross or ceremonial mallet, mostly used by a person who believes they have authority to make the final ruling on behalf of another being's destination, particularly a citizen of the state in legal terms. It's a detritus of one of the oldest sacred symbols ever known, subversive to say the least. Obviously, it's the order followers who put you in the cage that are the ultimate fault for carrying out the decision. People are put in cages for smoking cannabis following this false and moral judgment. Scum, the false power. Y is the 25th letter of the alphabet. In gematria, that's 7. So, 2 plus 5 equals 7. Y is the symbol for the Trinity. Y is the biggest question of all. It's the completion before starting over, or before letter Z, or the end of the beginning of the end. Z equals 26, which equals 8. So commencement and recommencement. Z mirrored and placed upon itself makes an 8, or an hourglass. Gavel to cube axis equals axe is, which is climb axe equals climb axe. The Y in the cube represents the Holy Trinity. The gavel, it's the inner African symbol for the Great One, the Chief. Amsu equals Horus without Set, or Neter, which equals nature, which also Neter or NTR equals God. But Neter equals gavel, and then the green language of gavel is to give El, or to give God, or gave is gift, so gift of God. How many of us own this type of house key? Supposedly, this is the common house key type. It's literally an archetype that we use every single day. It even has the 3 spiritual windows on it. which is I find very interesting. And also you see the 7 points. I really think that this is very, very important because you can use your key, your house key, to, as a reference to help other people understand this, because this is very, very important. So here we see the 7 stars, the 7 points. And what do they create when talking about the 7? It's what I talked about earlier, the 3 over the 4, the spiritual over the material, heaven on earth. So this is a side view of the cone over the square. And this is really important to understand. Okay? It's very important to understand the 7 points, because everything is in that house within you. The key to understand the Sephirotic tree of life, the key is in the tree. I'll get to that in a sec. Now, what is a key normally a part of or on? A ring, a key ring. It's impossible to understand Kabbalah without understanding Da'at, because Da'at is knowledge. You can't understand the mysteries of the tree of life without knowledge, esoteric knowledge. Da'at is the location, the mystical state, where all 10 Sephiro in the tree of life are united as one. And the word Kabbalah means to receive or deliver. So Da'at is about bringing knowledge to the information that is Kabbalah or the tree of life. Bring the light of knowledge to the tree while also receiving knowledge from the tree. Da'at is, just to make sure you understand what I just said, it's about bringing knowledge to the tree and then receiving the knowledge from the tree. That's about bringing information or knowledge to the information to reveal something extraordinary. Da'at is not always depicted in representations of the Sephiro and could be abstractly considered an empty slot into which the germ of any other Sephiro can be placed. Properly, the divine light is always shining, but not all humans can see it. So really pay attention to what I'm saying. The tree of life holds mysteries of the pillars, the stellar, the solar, and lunar, and the cube symbols. The concealment or revelation of the divine light shining through Da'at does not actually happen in Da'at itself. It only appears that way from the human perspective within Malkuth, or Earth, the lowest Sephiro. And perception of change can only occur in Malkuth. Humans become altruistic, self-giving, like the light, become able to see it. And for them, the benefits of Da'at's light seem revealed. However, humans who remain selfish cannot see it, and for them, its benefits seem hidden. Basically, it is those who truly care that possess the power to see what this symbol is really saying. So, having the care would be bringing the key to the tree. Here's a really awesome time-lapse photo of the celestial pole of the north. Right in the center, we see Polaris and all the stars of the north of the northern celestial sky seemingly rotating counterclockwise around it. Right around Polaris. In the stellar mythos, some 300,000 to 150,000 years ago, the point in the center of the circle was and is equal to the point at the top of the triangle, and this glyph is equivalent to the eye. The two are synonymous. In the circle of the pole star, there were 7 glorious ones, 7 stars, grouped together in this constellation of the Lesser Bear, revolving around what is known to be the Most High, the Great Judge, the all-seeing eye, symbolized by the pole star, which was the center of the circumpolar enclosure of the firmament or paradise situated at the north. The eye, or this dot or pole star in the center, therefore became a symbol or type of the eternal, because apparently it never changed with time. It was the earliest type of the supreme intelligence which gave the law, which was unerring, just, and true, and it became a standpoint in the heavens for the mind of man to rest on the center, or the rest on at the center, and radiate to the circumference point within a circle from which could not be erred or mistaken. Also, I just want to make mention that the dot in the circle is an ideograph for Horus, the god of the pole star north in the stellar mythos. This comes before the solar mythos and before the name Polaris, so it's Horus and the 6 glorious ones, the little bear. 7 being a question mark, being the biggest question mark of all, which is why. 7 being the number of God or the Most High. So, why? 7 equals why. The science of light is electromagnetism, the L and the mag. These are aspects of all that is. The all is simply frequency and vibration, a field. Frequency governs matter, and this is cymatics. Matter is a lower vibration. The L and the mag are 2 polarities of light, the seen and the unseen. These are the names and aspects of these 2 principles of the symbol. So, as you can see here, under electricity, you have 1, center, middle, point, somethingness, singular, unity, first being, all, the eye, most high, Polaris, visible, yang. The list goes on both of these, but under magnetism, you have void, the whole, waters of space, great mother, nothingness, the whole, the black hole, the all, womb, infinite, invisible, spirit, and yin. Hindus call the midpoint in a circle the bindu, the spark of masculine life within the cosmic womb, which is feminine. Looking at the 2D stellar all-seeing eye symbol, we could now have a pretty good idea of what information it holds. Now I want to take a step further into an emanated 3D or 3-dimensional shape, which is the cone. So think about the word cone. There's some green language, as you can see. It can mean see one or to see with one. The next part is just mind-blowing to me because when it comes to our 360-degree view of Earth and space, we have a pretty good idea of how infinite it all really is. But when we look up at the celestial North Pole from the northern part of Earth in our solar system, we see a spiral of stars rotating counterclockwise, seemingly around Polaris, like I showed earlier with the time lapse. This is what's called the visible universe, which makes an organic cone-like view to a cosmic center based on the illusion of a fixed star and all that rotates around it, which it is fixed for our perceptions here on Earth, which helps us understand rotation in the skies with respect to the rotation of crops, which then helps us understand the seasons and essentially ourselves. It's pretty amazing science. And yes, that is science. So what does this cone of stars and Polaris look like? If you guessed a Christmas tree, you are absolutely right. It is an archetypal Christmas tree. It's the tree of life overlap, but storing the information beautifully in plain sight. The lights are the stars, the bulbs are the planets, the ribbons is the spiral, and the star at the top, which is Polaris or Horus, and the stellar or solar because he's carried from stellar into solar mythos. So the stellar mythos is also stored in the Christmas tree. Also, think about where the tree normally is. It's in our house. It's in our living room. So we have a cut, dead tree in our living room. And where does the archetypal Santa come from? The North Pole. He comes down to give gifts under the tree. So who would Santa represent? He represents El. Remember what I said about the Gavel, the gift of God, the gift of nature? El comes down and gives the gift under the tree of life in Malkuth, earth. Comes all the way down to earth. The life bringer. And if you're nice, moral, you'll receive the great gift, the vision to see. And if you're naughty or immoral, then you'll get a sock full of coal. Coal comes from dead plants. It's an interesting allegory. It's pretty deep. So then, because telling or creating an allegory has to do with magic, we also see that the wizard hat corresponds to the cone as well, kind of like the cone heads. The dark part about the Christmas tree, of course, is that it has been separated from its roots. It's a dying tree versus the tree of life. Look into the maypole. It's about fertility rites, when to plant and when to harvest. It's about the deluge or the cycle. It's the dance of the feminine and masculine. This dance takes place in the springtime north of the equator, while south is in the fall, but always on May Day or May 1st. And also maypole is maple tree. So, and then maypole star to Polaris. The axis mundi, also cosmic axis, world pillar, center of the world tree. In certain beliefs and philosophies, this archetype is the world center, or the connection between heaven and earth. Navel center umbilical cord, omphalos. It's symbolic of the world's beginning. And as you can see, the gavel fits perfectly in this symbol, because that's what the gavel is. It's an axis, because the axe is. It is God. God is. Truth is. Here's the telescopes located at the summit of the dormant Mauna Kea volcano of the Big Island of Hawaii. This would be the cerebrum or neocortex of the earth brain. Cortex means cover in Latin, and neo means new, hence new covering. The neocortex is also the largest part of the human brain, hence Pacific Ocean is the biggest ocean. And the Latin root of Pacific is peacemaking, which is the total opposite of the other side of the world, where there's chaos and endless war. So this telescope and its location is almost like the Earth's manifested eye of the communication through man. Obviously, the volcano itself is analogous to the third eye of the Earth as well. So that's very interesting. Also, look at the symbols of the satellite and the telescope. Just try to understand. I'm trying to unravel the sacred science through symbol and archetypes to help us have a better idea of how closely interwoven everything really is. It's all connected. But with the right knowledge and openness, it will keep connecting in our minds, and the universe will reveal itself in the most magical and necessary ways. You yourself are even another little world, and have within you the sun and moon, and also the stars. And this is a quote by one of the great theologian writers of Alexandria, Origen Adamantius. The universe gives signs at all times, in our dreams, through our art, in our conversations, through colors and numbers, through words, and in epiphanies. When we align, pay attention, and piece them together, we will notice a beautiful revealing pattern. This is the universe communicating to us. All is love. Fear is illusion. All beings are free. Truth can never be destroyed. And that's my shout out to Mark Passio. And I also want to make a shout out to Douglas Martin for both for busting their ass to put this kind of information out there, because it is some of the most vital knowledge / information that I've ever come across. And I would argue that it's the most vital information for us to understand right now, because we're in a really chaotic division, as most of you know. Thank you. I'm very thankful for this seed event, and it's the effort in not only putting it together as well as presenting, but it's also attending and supporting. That is the part of the great work. You know, putting this type of agape or high form of love out into the universe. You know, it's not easy. The most important solution is studying these presentations with the intent of understanding them, and then, you know, putting that information out there for others. We all have the power to choose to devote our time and attention into learning and understanding the most important knowledge we know there is to be. And I can tell you, the knowledge dealing with, or any knowledge dealing with the causal factors, is getting us closer to truth. My advice is to stay strong, be vigilant, and work on and stay honest.